Today I'm going to make a ring using these ring cores. These are stainless steel. They're very comfortable on your fingers. The inside of the ring is beveled, so this nice gives a nice feel on your fingers. A couple of examples of rings that I've done. This one has a glowstone inlay on, and this is just a thin red line inlay. I really like these ring cores. There's a link in the description below on where I get them. The one thing I don't like about them is they're a little too thick. This one measures 1.82 millimeter, and my regular wedding band itself is 2.2 millimeters. The ring core itself is only 0.4 millimeters thinner than a standard band. If you're next to another ring, you know it, and they hit. It feels a little bulky and awkward. Here's another ring where you can see how thick the band is and how thin the material is. This makes the ring look big and bulky on your finger. What I've been doing is I've been taking the ring core, taking about 0.5 millimeter off the outer diameter of the ring. It gives me a lot more to work with. I can leave more material on the ring, or I can take more material off the ring to make the ring feel thinner, feel lighter on your hands compared to this ring that has the standard size ring core in it, to this ring that has, I've taken 0.5 millimeters off. These are the same size ring cores. It's size 12. But side by side, you can see that the one on the right is much fatter than the one on the left. Feels more natural on your hand. Feels more like a regular ring. It's not as bulky next to another ring compared to this one. In fact, this ring measures out to just over 2.2, which is almost the same as my wedding band. I'm also anxious to try this Ring Mandrel that I got from the same place the ring cores come from. The link in the description down there. And it comes with 3 sets of bushings, large, medium, and small. And it threads right onto your lathe instead of an MT taper. It also has a taper on the end for your live center. Probably going to be pretty stable as it is, and probably won't need the tailstock. As I've been checking it out, I've been seeing some issues with it, and I left on there a message on the review page about how the bushings won't tighten up onto a 3 millimeter wide band. And for one, the threads don't go deep enough, and even if they did, the spacers, the bushings meet each other and won't clamp onto the ring. And they called me and gave me a suggestion to try. They said to put one bushing on for a spacer, put the other one on the right size bushing for the ring, and then put the second bushing the same direction as the first bushing, so they will go tight up against each other and hold the ring. Problem with that is it's not automatically centered. It kind of gets it centered, but because only one side is wedged, it doesn't, and it's metal to metal, so as soon as you tighten this, it sticks. So what you kind of have to do is rotate it a few times and pushing onto the first bushing to get it center, and then tighten your knurled nut. Maybe wiggle it, make sure it doesn't pop free, and then snug it again, and just keep working it until you get that nice and center on the bushing. And you can rotate it and feel it. You'll feel it if it's not centered. So I'll try it like that a bit. I think the bushings need to be thought out a little better. I think the threads on here need to come down at least about there, because even with, I believe it is this one, even with a wider band, it doesn't quite tighten all the way. It's loose. So I still need a spacer in there. If the thread was just a little bit further, the knurled nut would tighten onto the 5mm bands. The other issue is this is a size 5 ring, 3mm or 5mm band, I believe. Even if I do use a spacer here, so I can tighten this on. Lines up pretty center. The ring is the same size as the bushings almost, so it's going to be very, very difficult to get in there and clean your edge up if you're not exactly flush with your material before you put it on here. Usually, and I'll show the process when I make the ring, I glue the core in flush to one side, and the other side is usually hanging over a little bit because the material is wider than the band, and so I'll need room to trim that material off flush, and you don't have it here, and there's not a smaller set of bushings. For this ring that I'm going to turn, seems to be okay. It centers up pretty good. This is a size 8 band, where I have quite a bit of room here to make sure my edges are clean. But even then, you have to be very careful not to hit your bushing. Now, to mill this down, I'm going to use this ring mandrel, which doesn't fit these cores very well, because I don't know if it's because of the domed interior. Won't allow it to slip onto the right size. But what I usually do is wrap this with a little bit of electrical tape. I'll get that centered up. The Maker Hive don't yet have a metal lathe that I can easily turn this down on. So but we do have a mini mill, so I'll chuck this into the mill, clamp the tool, and shave this side down. Okay, I have the ring turned down now, and you see I put 2 grooves in there also. That allows some space for the adhesive, the epoxy, to go when I glue this into the blank, so it doesn't all squish out and there's no epoxy left in there to hold. And before the ring measured about 1.8 millimeter thick. Now it's right at 1.4, so I took 0.4 millimeters off. I like to try and take 0.5. Now that the ring core is ready, I'm going to cut the blank. I'm going to use a chunk of this Spectra ply, there's a link in the description below. So I cut it out of a 45-degree angle, and I'm going to this is double sticky tape, stick it to there. I'll bore my hole, use epoxy to glue the ring core in. Obviously you want to drill a little bit smaller than your blank. Cut the inside to sneak up on the size of the ring so it fits snug. Previous video I talked to you about the bushings not seating on the turn between center, because the bottom, the way these are cut, but in this corner here it's actually curved like that. A little bigger, it comes down the side and then it curves like this. And what happens with new bushings is that the bottom side of this is a square corner, so when you put these together, they don't mate together. There's usually a little gap there. So what I do with new bushings is I take a countersink and just chamfer that inside corner a bit so it seats down flat onto the bushing. There's no gap here. It also happens with these bushings. The same issue is you have a curved corner on this inside edge, and you put it into the pen blank, it looks like it's flat, but if you hold it up to the light you can see that there's a gap in between. And when you tighten this into your lathe and push everything together, it flares this end out to meet because you're pushing it into this curve. So when your tube comes in and it flares it out like this. I've had that cause issues with assembly. It ends up being a little loose because now the end is flared out, and it can also cause cracking or chip breaking of your blank end. So I'm going to try and use a tool and make a relief cut in there on the lathe so I can cut it back like this and get that corner out of there so I don't flare out the end of my pen blank. Can't see it on the camera, I'm sure, but that fits nice and tight up against the blank now, so the pressure's against the blank and not wedging and flaring out the end of the tube. To the other one and turn my pen. The core glued in and it's rough to shape on the sander. I'm going to try this new Ring Mandrel and see how this works out. By trimming off what little bit of lip I left on here. I don't want to take it all the way down to the metal on the sander because that'll scratch up the ring. So I'll try using the smallest bushings, which just fit inside the ring. That should allow me to get my tool right up on the edge here and trim to the edge. I started having an issue with the ring as I got closer to the final size. It wasn't true. So I took it off the mandrel. If I rotate this slowly, you can see specifically this bushing, and you can even see where I nicked it here, but it's not concentric all the way around. So this bushing wobbles. So it wasn't holding my ring straight, and it appears that the other two do it as well, but not nearly as much, especially if you watch it with the knurled nut. I can feel it overhanging the knurl there, but on this side it's perfectly flush. So this one's a bit off center as well. It looks like the mandrel itself spins true. Check some of the other bushings. And here again, that I talked about in a few other videos, this one now is, well, it come free, but it was wedged on there because this is a square corner and this is a rounded inside corner, a cove. So when you jam this on there, it wedges onto that. So these need to be countersunk a little bit too, so it goes flat against that surface. Because if it wedges on slightly crooked, your rings will never be true. Let's see some of these other bushings, how they look. The bigger ones aren't too bad. These two definitely, especially this one, has a bit of a wobble to it. Until I discovered that, I was really liking this mandrel. I think they need to work on their bushings a little bit. For some reason they're not true, they're not round. The bigger bushings have a chamfer on the inside, so they meet up to that just fine, but none of the rest of them have that chamfer. This one I can get my fingernail in between there. So like in my other videos with the pen bushings, if you just use a countersink, chamfer that out a little bit. I think I'll go back to my old way of doing it and finish the ring. Now I have the flat edge of the turn between center meets the flat end of the bushing. It doesn't wedge in and want to stick. The flat end of the bushing meets the flat edge of the blank. Nothing's being wedged together.